I found the key to her safety deposit box 3 days after the funeral, tucked inside the lining of her favorite coat. I didn't open the box for 6 months. That coat was still hanging in the front closet. Eleanor had worn it to the grocery store, to the library, to visit our daughter across town. I'd walked past it 100 times, but on that third day, something made me stop. I put my hand in the pocket, empty. Then I felt the lining, and there was a stiffness near the hem. I ran my fingers along it until I found the opening. Inside was a small brass key with a plastic tag that said, First Portland Bank, Box 447. I stared at it for a long time. Eleanor had never mentioned a safety deposit box, but I didn't open it. I told myself I wasn't ready. I told myself there was nothing important in there, just old paperwork, maybe her birth certificate, maybe our marriage license. I put the key in my nightstand drawer and closed the drawer. Grief does strange things to time. March became April. April became May. Our daughter called every weekend. Our son, Derek, called twice. His calls were short. He was busy at work. I understood. Summer came and went. The house got quieter. I donated her clothes to charity. I cleaned out the bathroom cabinets. I did everything a widower is supposed to do. But I never opened that box. Until September. September 18, 2023. I remember the date because it would have been Eleanor's 67th birthday. I'd spent the morning at the cemetery. Her grave still had that raw, unsettled look. I'd brought her favorite flowers, white peonies. I'd stood there for an hour, saying nothing. When I got home, I went to the nightstand. I took out the key, and I drove to the bank. If this story moves you, please consider subscribing to this channel. There are more like it here, and I'd be honored to have you along. Linda Thompson was working that day. She'd been Eleanor's best friend for 30 years. She'd retired the year before, but came back part-time to help with the transition. She saw me walk in and her face softened. Arthur, it's good to see you. I held up the key. She looked at it, and for a moment something flickered behind her eyes. It's for a safety deposit box, I said. Eleanor's. I found the key in her coat. Linda nodded slowly. I remember the day she got it, she said. She came in alone. She looked scared, Arthur. But she wouldn't tell me why. I followed her to the vault. The box was small, maybe 6 inches by 10. She slid it out and placed it on the table. Would you like privacy? Yes. She left. I sat down. The box had a simple metal latch. I opened it. Inside was a white envelope. Nothing else. The envelope was addressed to me in Eleanor's handwriting. I recognized the careful, looping letters she'd used for 42 years. I opened it. There was a letter, 2 pages, and there was a promissory note folded neatly beneath it. I started with the letter. My hands were steady. If you're reading this, Arthur, then I'm gone. And I'm sorry for keeping this from you. I didn't want to burden you. I didn't want to make your last months with me about money. But I need you to know what happened. I asked you once when I was first diagnosed if you thought I was naive. You laughed and said no. You thought I was kind. I want to believe that was true. But I was naive, Arthur. With our son. I read the rest. The words didn't fully register at first. But I forced myself to go back and read them again. Derek came to me in January of 2022, just after my diagnosis. He said he had a medical emergency of his own. Something with his heart, he said. He needed $50,000. He promised to pay it back. He begged me not to tell you. He said you would worry. He said you might say no, and he didn't want any conflict in the family. I believed him, Arthur. I believed my own son. I transferred the money from our savings. He signed a promissory note. That's the piece of paper you're holding now. He promised to start paying me back within 6 months. He never paid a cent. I reminded him a few times. He always had an excuse. The market was down. His job was uncertain. The economy was bad. And I was getting sicker, and I didn't have the energy to fight. I asked him one last time in September of 2022. I asked him to come to the bank with me. I wanted him to see the box, to see the note. I wanted him to know I wasn't going to forget. He came. He signed the note again. He promised. He even apologized, but nothing changed. By December, I was too weak. By February, I was on hospice. I never told you. I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I had been so foolish, and I was ashamed that my own son would do this to me. I don't want revenge, Arthur. I never did. But I want you to know the truth, and I want you to use this money however you see fit. I should have told you while I was alive. I'm sorry I didn't. All my love, always. Eleanor. I set the letter down. I picked up the promissory note. It was printed on a standard form. The amount was $50,000. The date was January 15, 2022. The borrower's name was Derek Miller. The signature was his. I knew his handwriting. It was clear and bold, and it was notarized. September 12, 2022. The same day I now knew he'd come with Eleanor to the bank. I sat in that small, quiet room for a long time. I felt many things, but mostly I felt cold. My wife had been dying of cancer, and my son had stolen $50,000 from her, and she had died carrying that shame alone. I folded the letter and the note and put them back in the envelope. I put the envelope inside my jacket. I walked out to the lobby. Linda was waiting. "Everything okay, Arthur?" "No," I said, "but it will be." I drove home. I sat at the kitchen table. I read the letter again. I looked at the promissory note again. Derek's signature, clear as day, and I knew. I had to find out why my wife never told me. I had to find out what else my son had done. And I had to make it right. I held the note in my hand, Derek's signature clear as day. And I knew I had to find out why my wife never told me. The next morning, I called Linda. She answered on the second ring. "Arthur, I was wondering when you'd call." "I need to see the bank logs," I said, "for Eleanor's box. I need to know who accessed it and when." She paused. "I can't give you those without a court order, Arthur." "Bank policy." "I'm not asking for copies. I'm asking you to look at them and tell me what they say." Another pause. "Longer this time. Meet me at the bank at noon," she said. "Use the side entrance." At 11:58, I parked on Oak Street. The side door was unlocked. Linda was waiting in the hallway, holding a manila folder. "Follow me." She led me to a small conference room on the second floor. No windows, one table, two chairs. She closed the door and laid the folder flat. "The access logs for box 447, she said, "covering January 2022 through March 2023. She opened the folder. I leaned forward. The log showed two entries. The first was dated January 14, 2022. Eleanor alone. That was the day I realized she must have opened the box. The second entry was September 12, 2022. Two names, Eleanor Miller and Derek Miller. "Show up together," Linda said. She signed him in as an authorized viewer. I looked at the signature. Eleanor's handwriting, shaky but legible. "He was with her," I said. It wasn't a question. He was with her. I traced the date with my finger. September 12, 2022. 9 months before she died. That was the day she'd had the promissory note notarized. That was the day Derek had signed it. He knew, I said. He knew she had the note. He knew she kept it in that box. Linda nodded slowly. Either that or he helped her put it there. I closed the folder. I need to see her doctor. Dr. Wynne? Yes. She'll talk to you, Linda said. Eleanor trusted her. I called Dr. Nguyen's office that afternoon. The receptionist said the doctor could see me the next day at 2. September 22, 2023. I arrived at the Portland Oncology Center 15 minutes early. The waiting room smelled like hand sanitizer and old magazines. I sat in the same chair Eleanor had probably sat in dozens of times. At exactly 2, a nurse called my name. Dr. Fine. Nguyen was in her office, standing behind a desk covered in papers. She was maybe 50, with gray-streaked hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. She shook my hand and gestured to a chair. Arthur, I'm so sorry about Eleanor. Thank you. How can I help? I took a breath. I need to know about her mental state, her cognition, specifically in the last year of her life. She didn't flinch. That's an unusual question. Eleanor left something behind, I said. A legal document. There may be a dispute about whether she was competent when she signed it. Dr. Nguyen placed her hands flat on the desk. Arthur, I treated Eleanor for 18 months, from diagnosis to the end. I can tell you without hesitation that she was mentally sharp until her final weeks. The cancer was in her pancreas, not her brain. She never showed signs of confusion, memory loss, or impaired judgment. She asked detailed questions about her treatment options. She managed her own medications. She discussed her financial affairs with her accountant as late as December 2022. I held her gaze. Could she have been pressured? Manipulated? She was quiet for a moment. Eleanor was a private person, she said. But she wasn't weak. I saw her cry exactly once. It was about 2 months before she died. She told me she regretted not telling someone something. She wouldn't say what. She said she was ashamed. Do you know who she was ashamed of? No, but I know it wasn't you. I thanked her. I walked out to my car and sat in the parking lot for a long time. That evening, I called a lawyer. Margaret Chen answered on the first ring. I knew her name from a friend at the Historical Society. She specialized in contract disputes. I have a promissory note, I said. Signed by my son, dated January 15, 2022. The money was never repaid. Who borrowed the money? My late wife. And who was it borrowed from? Also my late wife. He borrowed it from her. Silence. Arthur, I'll need to see the note. Can you bring it to my office tomorrow? September 25, 2023. I sat across from Margaret Chen at her desk. She was maybe 60, with silver hair and reading glasses that hung from a chain around her neck. She read the promissory note twice. Then she read Eleanor's letter. This is enforceable, she said. The note is signed and notarized. The date is clear. The amount is stated. There's no ambiguity. I nodded. The problem is the relationship, she said. He's your son. If you sue him, you're suing your own son. The court will see a family dispute. Derek's lawyer will argue the note was a gift, not a loan. They'll say Eleanor never intended to collect. He did. Prove it. I pulled out the bank logs. I pulled out the records from the transfer. I pulled out Dr. Nguyen's notes. Margaret read everything. Slowly. She looked up. She was of sound mind? Yes, her doctor confirmed it, and he knew about the note? He was there when she put it in the box. Margaret leaned back. She studied me. Arthur, I can file this case. I can win this case. But here's what I need you to understand. This will destroy your relationship with your son. There's no coming back from this. There's no half measure. Oh no. Are you ready for that? I looked at Eleanor's letter, folded beside my hand on the desk. I'm ready. Margaret picked up her pen. Then I'll start the paperwork. She paused at the door. This is enforceable, she said. But are you ready for what it will do to your family? I told her I was. I chose a Friday night, a neutral place. A restaurant called the Hawthorne, one of those family-style Italian places where nobody notices if you raise your voice because everybody else is already doing it. Sarah picked it. She thought we needed to reconnect. She didn't know what I was carrying in the inside pocket of my jacket. We sat in a booth near the back. Derek was already working his charm, telling some story about a client who made a bad investment. He laughed. He always laughed at his own stories. Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked tired. I let him talk. I let him finish his story. I let him order a second glass of wine. I wanted him comfortable. Dad, he said, dabbing his mouth with a napkin. You look tired. You should get out more. Join a club or something. I've been busy, I said. Busy doing what? I set my fork down. I found something of your mother's. Sarah perked up. Something nice? Not exactly. Derek's face flickered. Just for a second. A tightening around the mouth. But he recovered fast. He leaned back, arranged his face into concern. "What do you mean?" Eleanor had a safety deposit box at First Portland Bank. "Yes!" There was a letter inside, and a promissory note. Derek's hand stopped moving. The fork hung. I watched him decide which mask to wear. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. The note was for $50,000. Signed by you. Dated January 15th, 2022. Silence. The table between us felt 3 miles wide. "Dad, you're confused," he said it softly. Gently, like he was humoring a child. "Mom never had that kind of money, and she would have told me." "She did tell you. She lent it to you. You promised to pay her back." "Arthur, listen to yourself." His voice got that edge now. The condescending one, the one he used on difficult clients. "You're grieving. It's understandable, but you're making things up. Maybe you should talk to someone, a professional." "Are you calling me senile?" "I'm saying you're confusing memory with imagination. It happens at your age." Sarah's head was turning between us like a tennis match. "Derek, what is he talking about?" "Nothing, honey. He's just confused." I reached into my jacket, slow, deliberate. I took out the note and laid it flat on the table. "Dated, signed, notarized. This is my signature," I said. "I witnessed Eleanor sign this. But the loan?" That was between her and Derek. I turned the paper around. "Look at it, Sarah." Sarah reached for it. Derek grabbed her wrist. "Don't touch that." "Let me see it," she said. "It's a forgery." Derek let go of my hand. He didn't let go. I saw her face change. Something clicked behind her eyes. The way a woman's face changes when she realizes the man she married has been lying to her longer than she ever imagined. "You knew about this?" she asked me. "I found out 6 months ago. After I opened Eleanor's box. She died before she could collect." Derek stood up. The booth scraped the floor. 2 tables turned to look. He pointed a finger at me. "You sent her to her grave with this nonsense? With this grudge?" I stayed seated. I didn't raise my voice. "I didn't send her anywhere, Derek. That was cancer." "But I did file a lawsuit. The papers were served this morning." He froze. "You what?" "Margaret Chen. Chen and Associates. Contract litigation. You'll get the summons by Monday. It covers the $50,000 plus interest and legal fees. That's $12,000 in case you want to do the math." "Dad, are you insane?" "I'm not insane. I'm just not confused anymore." Sarah looked at the note, her hand shaking. Her voice came out small. "Is this true, Derek?" "Sarah, let's go. Let me explain. Did you borrow money from your dying mother?" "It's not what you think." "Answer me. Did you?" He didn't answer. The whole restaurant felt quiet. I slid out of the booth. I looked at Derek, then at Sarah. "The papers are served," I said. "See you in court." I left the note on the table. I left the bill. I walked. Behind me, I heard Sarah's voice break. "Derek, Derek, talk to me." And then I heard nothing but the door closing and the cold October air on my face. The courthouse in Portland was an old building. Marble floors, high ceilings, the kind of place that makes you feel small. I sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, my hands folded in my lap, my briefcase at my feet. Inside that briefcase was Eleanor's letter, the promissory note, bank statements, and a copy of Dr. Bacter, Nguyen's medical records. 34 years of teaching history, and I never thought I'd be giving evidence in a courtroom. Never thought I'd be doing it against my own son. Derek arrived with his lawyer 20 minutes before we went in. He walked past me without a word. His lawyer was a woman in a navy suit, sharp, confident. She glanced at me like I was just an old man with a grudge. Maybe I was, but I had the receipts. The judge was a woman in her 50s. Judge Morrison. She had gray hair pulled back tight and reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked tired, but she looked fair. I liked that. Derek's lawyer spoke first. She argued that the $50,000 transfer from Eleanor to Derek was a gift. A mother helping her son. She argued that Eleanor had dementia in her final months, that she was confused, that she didn't understand what she was signing. She argued that the promissory note was obtained through undue influence. I sat still and watched my son's face. He was calm, confident. This was going to work, he thought. Then it was my turn. Margaret Chen stood up. She was 62 years old, hair silver and short, glasses on a chain around her neck. She'd been handling contract disputes for 30 years. She knew the law. But more than that, she knew people. "Your Honor," she said, "I would like to read a letter into evidence." The court clerk handed her a piece of paper. 2 pages, handwritten, Eleanor's handwriting. She began to read. "My dearest Arthur, if you are reading this, I am gone. I am sorry I couldn't tell you this in person, but I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I trusted our son when I should have known better. I was ashamed that I let him take $50,000 from me and never told you. I was ashamed that I let my love for him blind me to what he was doing." The courtroom was silent. I could hear the clock on the wall ticking. "He told me it was for a medical emergency. He said Sarah was sick. He said they needed the money for treatment. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But it was a lie. I found out later, after the money was gone. He was paying off credit card debts. He never told Sarah. He never told anyone, and by the time I knew the truth, I was too sick to do anything about it." Derek's face had changed. The calm was gone. He was looking at his hands. "I am leaving this letter and the note he signed in the safety deposit box. I am leaving it for you, Arthur, because you are the only person I trust to do what I could not. Please do not let him get away with this. Not for me, for the truth." Margaret Chen folded the letter. She looked at the jury. 12 people, all of them listening. "Dr. Ta." Nguyen took the stand after that. She was 48 years old, small, precise. She wore a white lab coat over a blouse. She testified that she had treated Eleanor from the time of her diagnosis in January 2022 until weeks before her death. She testified that Eleanor was of sound mind throughout that period. She testified that Eleanor discussed her financial affairs with her accountant in December 2022, and that the accountant had confirmed in writing that Eleanor was clear and decisive. "Did she ever show signs of dementia?" Margaret asked. "No," Dr. Nguyen said. "Never." Then the bank records. The transfer. $50,000 from Eleanor's savings account to Derek's checking account on January 17, 2022. And then the promissory note, signed and notarized, dated January 15, 2022. Margaret held it up. "This is your signature, Mr. Kila." Derek's lawyer objected, but the note was already entered into evidence. "Yeah." Derek was called to the stand. He sat in the chair, hands gripping the armrests. His voice was smooth, practiced. He said it was a gift. He said his mother wanted to help. He said the note was just a formality. Nothing enforceable, just paperwork. Margaret asked him one question. "If it was a gift, why did you sign a promissory note stating, quote, 'I, Derek Miller, promise to pay Eleanor Miller the sum of $50,000 with interest'?" He didn't answer. The jury was out for 2 hours. I sat in the hallway, the marble floor cold beneath my feet. Linda Thompson was there. She'd taken a day off work to come. She sat beside me, her hand on my arm. "It's not about the money," I said. "I know," she said. The bailiff called us back in. We stood. The jury filed in. The foreman unfolded a piece of paper. The judge asked for the verdict. "We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Arthur Miller. We award him $50,000 in damages, plus $12,000 in interest and legal fees." Derek's head dropped. He put his hands on the table in front of him and just stared. The judge thanked the jury. Court was adjourned. I gathered my papers. I put them in my briefcase. I walked out. Derek came after me. He grabbed my arm. Dad, wait." I stopped. I turned around. "How could you do this?" he said. His voice was shaking, not with remorse, with rage. "She was my mother. You dragged her through court." "No, Derek," I said. "You did. You're the one who stole from her. You're the one who lied. I just told the truth." "I'll appeal." "Good luck." His face twisted. "I'll never forgive you." I looked at him, at my son, the son I raised, the son I loved, the son I didn't know at all. "Simon," I said, "you don't have to forgive me. You just have to pay me what you owe. And you owe her more than money." I walked away. Linda was waiting for me by the door. She didn't say a word. She just handed me a check for $62,000, the first payment from the court. I folded it and put it in my pocket. The money wasn't what I wanted. I wanted him to know what he did to his mother. And now he knew. The check sat on my nightstand for 2 weeks. $62,000. I looked at it every night before bed and every morning when I woke up. The money was Derek's, in a sense, but it was Eleanor's too. Her savings, her trust, her betrayal. I knew what I had to do. Margaret Chen helped me set it up. The Oregon Cancer Research Institute. They had a wing dedicated to pancreatic cancer research. Eleanor's oncologist, Dr. Nguyen, had mentioned them once in passing. I remembered because Eleanor had smiled when she heard the name. A small, tired smile, but genuine. The charity gala was on February 14th. Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wore my best suit, the one I'd worn to Eleanor's funeral. It still smelled faintly of flowers. Linda came with me. She sat beside me at the dinner table, her hand resting on my arm. "You ready?" she asked. "I've been ready for 6 months," I said. The ballroom was full. Doctors in tuxedos, donors in evening gowns, researchers in modest suits. The Institute's director gave a speech about progress and hope. Then she introduced me. "Mr. Arthur Miller," she said, "has made a donation in memory of his wife, Eleanor." I walked to the podium. The microphone was too tall. I adjusted it. The room went quiet. "My wife loved libraries," I said. She worked in one for 37 years. She believed in stories, in keeping records, in making sure the truth was preserved. I pulled the letter from my jacket pocket. Not the original. A copy, but I held it up anyway. She left me a letter after she died. In it she told me about a loan she made. A loan that was never repaid. She didn't name the person, but I found out. I'm not here to name him tonight. I'm here to tell you what she did with the truth. I paused. Linda nodded from her seat. "Eleanor turned her pain into paper," I said. "She documented everything, and when she couldn't act, she left it for someone who could." I folded the letter and put it back in my pocket. So I'm donating the full amount she intended for someone else. $62,000 in her name. For research that might save the next Eleanor, the next mother, the next grandmother, the next woman who trusted the wrong person. Applause. Polite at first, then louder. I stepped back from the microphone. The director shook my hand. A photographer from the local paper snapped my picture. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a satisfied one. The cold kind. Linda drove me home. We didn't talk much. She just patted my arm and said she would have been proud. I nodded. I hoped that was true. The story ran in the Oregonian the next morning. The next morning. Widower donates judgment to cancer research in wife's honor. Front page of the local section. Linda clipped it and brought it over. "You want to frame it?" she asked. "Maybe," I said, "or maybe just keep it in a drawer." I didn't expect Derek to see it, but of course he did. He always read the paper. It was part of his professional image, the financial advisor who stayed informed. He showed up at my house that evening, 7:15. I was making dinner, soup from a can, nothing fancy. I opened the door. He stood on the porch in a wrinkled jacket. His hair was uncombed. His eyes were red. "Van, I'm not your father," I said. I kept my voice flat. "I'm the man whose wife you stole from. Can I come in?" "No." He looked down. His hands were shaking. "I lost my job," he said. "Sarah filed for divorce. I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment on 12th Avenue. "No." "How do you know?" "I have friends," I said. "People talk." "Dad, I'm sorry." 3 words. 7 years of silence. 6 months of lies. A promissory note signed in a bank vault. Yay! And now, 3 words. You didn't just steal money, I said. You stole her trust. She died thinking she was a fool. She died believing her son had lied to her face. And she was too sick to confront you, so I did it for her. He started to cry. Big, ugly sobs. I didn't feel sorry for him. Dad, please. You called me senile, I said, at the restaurant, in front of your wife. You laughed at me. You said I was imagining things. I was scared. I don't care. I closed the door, not hard, just a soft final click. I went back to the kitchen. The soup was boiling. I stirred it. My hands were steady. The phone rang. I picked it up. Arthur? It was Sarah. Her voice was thin, exhausted. Sarah, I need to tell you something about Derek. I sat down at the kitchen table with the phone pressed to my ear. The soup was still bubbling on the stove. I turned the heat down. Sarah, I said, oh, take your time. She took a breath. I heard her exhale, long and shaky. Then she started talking. Arthur, I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know any of it until that night at the restaurant. When you put that note on the table, I thought Derek was going to be sick. I thought he was going to throw up right there. I know, I said, but it's worse than you think. I waited. Derek didn't just owe your wife money, she said. He owed everyone, credit cards, $30,000 in credit card debt. He'd been hiding the statements for years. I found them in his glove compartment, in his office drawer. He was transferring money between accounts like a shell game. I closed my eyes. 30,000, maybe more. I stopped counting after that. He told me the loan from Eleanor was supposed to fix everything. He was going to pay off the cards with it. But then he didn't. He said he kept thinking he'd get a bonus or a promotion. It never came. So he just let it sit, I said. He let her die thinking he'd stolen from her. The words hung in the air. I didn't have anything to say to that. Sarah kept going. Her voice got steadier. She sounded like someone who'd been carrying something heavy and had finally put it down. After the trial, Meridian fired him. They called it conduct unbecoming. I guess having your name in the paper for defrauding your dying mother isn't great for business. He came home that day and just sat on the couch. He didn't say a word. He stared at the wall for 3 hours. Where is he now? He's at a gas station, the Shell on Burnside. He works the register. He's been there for 3 weeks. I didn't say anything. I filed for divorce, she said. Last week, I have full custody of Emily. He gets supervised visitation. Every other Saturday, 2 hours, at a center downtown. He shows up late. He smells like cigarettes. Emily doesn't want to go anymore. I'm sorry, Sarah. Don't be. You did what Eleanor asked you to do. Derek did this to himself. She paused. I heard her sniff. He lives in a 1-bedroom on 12th Avenue, she said. The kind of place with bars on the windows. He calls me sometimes. He cries. He says he wants to see Emily more. He says he wants to come to family dinners. I told him no. I told him the family he broke isn't something you tape back together. There's no tape strong enough, I said. No, she said, there isn't. We were quiet for a moment. I watched the steam curl off the soup. Arthur, she said, I just thought you should know. So you don't wonder. So you don't spend the rest of your life wondering if you did the right thing. I don't wonder, I said. Good. She said goodbye. I said goodbye. I set the phone down. The kitchen was quiet. The clock ticked. The soup was almost ready. I looked at the mantel. Eleanor's photo was there. The one from our 40th anniversary. She was laughing. She always laughed with her whole face. I picked up the photo. I held it in both hands. I kept my promise, I whispered, but I wondered if she would have wanted it this way. Not the money part, not the legal part, the part where her son was a stranger, the part where the family we built was just rubble. I set the photo back down. The soup was done. I poured it into a bowl. I sat down at the table and ate it alone. I thought about Derek. I thought about him standing behind a gas station register, handing someone a receipt, smiling the same smile he'd used on his mother. I thought about the promissory note. I thought about his signature, clean and straight, not a tremor. I thought about the letter Eleanor wrote. The last sentence. Please don't hate him, Arthur. He's still my son. I didn't hate him, but I couldn't love him anymore either. There's a space between those two things. That's where I live now. I finished the soup. I washed the bowl. I dried it. I put it back in the cabinet. I went to bed at 9. I didn't sleep well. The next morning I woke up early. Sunday. I made coffee. I showered. I put on a clean shirt. I hadn't been to the cemetery since the funeral. But that morning felt different. I got in the car and drove. The cemetery is on a hill overlooking the river. It was cold, gray. The grass was wet. I parked and walked to her grave. It took me a moment to find it. I hadn't memorized the row. But there it was. Eleanor Miller, beloved wife. The stone was still new. I stood there. I didn't know what to say. I sat down on the grass. I didn't care that it was wet. I told her about the lawsuit. I told her we won. I told her about the jury and the judge and the look on Derek's face when the verdict was read. I told her about the check, $62,000. I told her I donated it all, her money, her name, her research. The wind moved through the trees, and I thought I heard her say something, but it was just the leaves. I kept talking. I told her about Sarah, how she filed for divorce, how she has Emily now, how Derek sees her every other Saturday at a center downtown. Supervised, 2 hours. That's all he gets. I told her about the gas station on Burnside, how I drove past it once. I saw him through the glass. He was wiping down a counter. He looked tired. He looked old. He looked like a stranger. I told her about the credit card debt. $30,000. He didn't use her money for Sarah's medical bills. He used it to cover his own lies. She knew that before she died. I saw it in her letter. She must have found out somehow. She never said, but she knew. I sat there for a long time. The sun came out, faint, thin. The river glittered below. I told her I kept my promise, that I didn't let him get away with it, that I didn't let her be forgotten, that the money is working now. Somewhere, in a lab, someone is looking at cells under a microscope. Someone is trying to save the next person. The next wife, the next mother. Maybe someday they'll find something. Maybe they'll cure it. Maybe someone else's husband won't have to bury his wife at 66. That's the only comfort I have. I visit Eleanor's grave every Sunday now. Same time. Same place. I bring coffee. I sit on the grass. I talk. I tell her about the weather, about Linda, about the garden she used to tend. I tell her about the family. What's left of it. My daughter invites me over for dinner sometimes. She lives across town. She stood by me through all of it. She never doubted. She knew her brother was capable of something like this. She just didn't know how far he'd go. The house is quiet when I come home. The kitchen is clean. The bed is made. I cook for one. I eat alone. I watch the news. I go to sleep. And on Sundays, I drive to the hill and I sit on the grass and I talk to the woman I loved for 42 years. I still have the key, the little brass key to box 447. I keep it in my nightstand drawer. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself that love isn't blind. It's just patient. And sometimes it's afraid. Afraid to speak up. Afraid to hurt. Afraid to lose. Eleanor was afraid. That's what I understand now. She knew Derek betrayed her, but she couldn't bring herself to tell me, because that would have broken me, and I needed her. She was wrong, of course. I needed the truth. But I understand why she did it. She was trying to protect me. And in the end, she found a way. She mailed a letter from the grave. I keep it in the same box as the key, the letter, the promissory note, the bank statement. I don't need them anymore, but I can't throw them away. They're the story of how I lost my son and saved my wife's honor in the same year. The family is fractured. It will never be what it was. Some wounds don't heal. They just scar over. But I can live with that. I am alive. I am not bitter. I am not angry. I am just a man who keeps a promise. I look at her photo on the mantel, the one from our 40th anniversary. Her eyes are bright. Her smile is wide. She's wearing the pearl necklace I gave her. I don't cry. I never cry, but I do miss her. Every day, every hour, every Sunday, the money will go somewhere. Into something. A cure, a discovery, a miracle. That's more than Derek gave her. He gave her a lie. I gave her a second life, her name on a research wing, her picture in a newsletter, her story told with honesty. Maybe that's enough, maybe it's not, but it's all I have, and I'll take it. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. I have more stories to tell.